We all were that one kid that saw anime. Your first anime might have been Pokemon, a lot of us Dragon Ball Z, and we all know that we watched Sailor Moon. Our passions for anime that we loved evolved, and we wanted to recreate the worlds and heroes that we saw in them. Our artistic influences became copies of the heroes that we saw and we connected with. With time, we would find that the origin of our favorite comics came from this little old magazine called Shonen Jump. And now, they're looking for the next international manga star for the 100th Tezuka Manga Award. And that brings me to what we're going to be talking about today, and that's what you're going to need to win your first manga competition. But before we get into this video, don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button if you're new, hit that like button, and that bell for notifications when you want to hear things that I have to say. But let's get into it. Shonen Jump and Medi have come together to create this international manga competition. Think of it like the Evo of manga. Anyone can enter, however there are a few rules that everyone needs to follow. That is, you need to have a complete story that can be in any genre, think about whatever genre you want, and make sure that is original, something that we'll come back to at the end of this video. Next is you need to make sure that you have no more than 55 pages included inside of your manga. There are a few specific rules after the general structure of how your manga should be that we should take a look at. You're allowed to have 2 submissions of different works, so you can create 2 different mangas, and you would think, why would you want to do that? Maybe there are some people who have already created manga that they would like to showcase to the world, and they can use it as an advertising boost. I wouldn't recommend that, as it might devalue your chances and seeing some of your imperfections and skills. I would rather focus on creating one really good piece of work and submitting that as your final product. Some other thoughts that you can think about as well is thinking about working with a partner, someone who can help write the story while you do the art, or vice versa. So those are the rules. Let's get into the next part. This is the point where I want to give some advice before we get into the things that we should be doing. There are some things that we should not be doing. I've looked at some of the people who have already submitted on the site, and they have done these things already, so that's why I'm bringing them up now, so you have an idea of what you need to work with. We need to make sure, like the rules said in the beginning, we need a complete story. What does that mean? That means your story needs to end. Don't give in or submit chapters that are not finished. Look up what a short story is and know that your story has to have a conclusive ending. There's no to be continued. There is no next time. The story ends right then and there. If your story doesn't end, I'm going to say that you're not going to make it any further than anyone just seeing your story. Don't take anyone else's story. Don't make a spin-off of an existing story. Just make something that is original. Another key part in the rules that were stated above. Make your own work. Don't plagiarize. Don't take anyone else's work. Don't just do what has been done. Go beyond that. Think beyond that. Think beyond the world of the characters that you love that I talked about in the beginning, because that is going to be the point at which you will elevate your manga from just the regular nobodies to somebody who can actually be read and something that is actually interesting. Now we're here for the meat of our video. We've done all of our housekeeping that we need to do. Let's get into why we're here. So I'm gonna break this down into 3 parts because, you know, I love 3 things. And that is going to be talking about the message or the theme of our manga, how to make a great hook and what is a hook, and your presentation. Each part is going to build on the other because they're very important to the overall construction of your manga. So we're going to start with the message or theme. And basically that is the heart of your story. And what you want to have in the heart of your story is you want to have something to say. Make that shit compelling. Don't just make anything for the sake of making it like the manga or anime that you've seen before. There are a lot of things that you have to tell that can come from your own lived experiences or people that you know. Don't just take from what you've already seen and use that solely as your basis to create your message that you're trying to say. Whereas I'm just fighting for my friends, or I want to find a mystical treasure, or I want to be the best insert thing that I've ever been. What you need to do is really dig down and see what that message is and how that can relate to your overall experience, and maybe you can even be more specific and how that can be made more interesting. And we can even look at some ways that works with some manga that we've read before. Looking at some messages from manga that we've read before is we can see, at least the ones that I've taken, because one of the interesting things that happens with messages or themes is that the person who's reading it will take different messages away, because this is art and there's not just one way to look at something. But if you do it right, you can get them to see your point from the way you present your story. And that's what we're going to get into later down in the presentation section. So when we're looking at themes and messages along Shonen Jump series, we can see some themes arising in Assassination's Classroom, Shokugeki no Soma, Demon Slayer, and Dr. Stone. So some of the things that we look at in Assassination Classroom are people who are failures, not able to work in society. In Shokugeki, is the ability to have the freedom to cook not a positive one? Does that create people who are failures in the end? Demon Slayer, are the people that we see as others the ones that are truly the enemy just because they're different from us? It's a very actually compelling theme and message I took from that. Dr. Stone, is science good for the world, and do we need it to bring the world back to the way it was? That's like more of a question I'm positing, but that's something like I was thinking about as a theme. Is science good? Kind of simple, but you see its applications throughout the story, and there's many ways to show that it is. And those are some of the examples and stuff that you want to think about with your theme and how to have people discover it and the totality and how it applies to your story. Just some of those things to think about while we get into the more important part, and that is the hook. What is a hook? It is basically a technique in the opening of your story that hooks the reader's attention so that they'll keep reading. So basically you're trying to get people who are your fish to be on your hook and to catch them to go deeper into your story. We can look at some good examples of hooks from some of the stories we just talked about in the themes and messages section. Looking at Assassination's Classroom, we look at it and you start off the story, it starts off with a bang, an alien walks into a classroom and kids try to shoot him. That sounds like a setup for a joke, because it's just like, why is any of this happening? And that's one of the points of your hook. Why is any of this stuff in the beginning happening? Because it's just like, I want to know more about why there's an alien and there are kids trying to shoot him with guns. What does that even mean? So now I want to read more to figure out the rest of the story, and that's where you start pulling your reader in more and more. We can look at Shokugeki, which is basically the start where we see Soma eating really nasty food. It evolves basically into food porn and what food porn is and how that feels, and there's more deeper messages and themes in it. But just I wanted to read more because he made really nasty food and wanted to see if he could make better food. More the why, pulling the person in, and something that you can do is definitely look at your first page. The first page sets the tone and the interest, which will be your hook. Look at a lot. Research a lot of manga that you like to read and look at their first pages. You'll see that they all do something very interesting, and that is where I believe the hook is for a lot of their stories to bring you in. We look at Demon Slayer, and it starts off with Tanjiro carrying his sister, and we're asking ourselves, why is he carrying her? Because he's saying that he doesn't want her to die, and we don't even know why that's happening. And that's a perfect hook to figure out how things are gonna happen. The one that I think does it the best is Dr. Stone out of the four. It starts off with, this is the day the world turned to stone. Whoa. There are a bajillion questions, and the artwork really helps sell it. So that's another part that we're going to talk about in presentation. But something that the artwork does and the words do just in 2 panels tells me I really want to read this, because I really want to know, why did the world turn to stone? Was it Medusa? Was it something else? I don't know. And how does that all tie back into science? It's all very compelling and interesting, but you have to think about that in the frame of your own story in creating a hook that will bring someone in to your world and how to make that better. And lastly, we're going to talk about presentation. And I think this is the most, if not the biggest point out of all of them. The other two are really important, but presentation helps keep your reader involved in the story on many levels. And we can break that down in another video talking about how to make a one-shot. We're going to focus on how that relates to this competition. And some of the things that were very important from the judges that we saw, some of the amazing high esteemed judges that may be reading your work, is that they want to see very different, exciting characters. And that's one of the points that I talked about earlier when I was explaining about originality and what that means. Because a lot of the things that I read in the initial people who were submitting is that they created a lot of characters that I had already seen before, and it really pulled me out of the reading experience. And that was just on the character level. We're gonna go into other points that really took me out of the reading experience and how you can better work those. So we need to first of all establish a very exciting, relatable, and visually interesting character. That's basically the main character and characters of the world, but we need to think of someone who's different, something that we've never seen before, and how that applies to our story, but we can show that in a way that is more interesting than a lot of the things that we've seen. So what we don't want to do here is we don't want to recreate characters that we've already seen with the long hair or the flowy hair or hair that we've seen before or body types that we've seen before. Thinking outside of the box here will make your story really different and stand out. So you want to give us something that we haven't seen. If we wanted another Luffy or we wanted another Goku, they wouldn't be making this competition because they want to see characters that they haven't seen before in ways that they haven't seen expressed. Research more. It's really hard to explain that part because that takes a lot of time and patience and years of practice, so you might not get it on your first try. But that is the most important part to really understanding how you're going to create your character visually outside, and then on the inside creating a personality that is not someone who is just hungry or really smart. Like, they have levels to them and layers, and how we figure out how they work is going to be the most interesting part to the story, and how you're going to get people to go from that first page to the last page that you're writing. And now that even brings into your story flow. How is your story presented? Now, it doesn't need to be the craziest story because you don't have a lot of time, but how do your scenes go together that you've constructed? Is your spelling correct? How's the pacing with how scenes go? The transitions between scenes. Is it seamless? Does it flow? Does it make me want to read more? Do I keep getting hooked in by questions that will eventually be answered at the end? These are things that you need to be thinking about in terms of your story flow and how that overall ties into the message or themes that we talked about earlier. Is it getting back to at the heart of your story? That is like some complex shit that I don't think I can really explain in a few seconds, but just think about that. And the most important part at this point is that your story needs to end. Make sure that it ends, because if it doesn't, then you're already out of the running. I've said this once, I've said it twice, and this is the third time. It's really important. And then we got to think about visual flow. How does your story go from your panels? How does your layout look? How does your drawing match the story that you're trying to tell? How are the compositions inside of your panels? These are a lot of things I can talk about, but these are just notes that I want you to think about. And lastly, I'm going to say this point to finish this off is, in your presentation, be concise in everything that is in your work. Trim off the fat on things that do not matter, visually and in your writing. Those two things are important. You only have so many pages to work with. Don't over-explain and don't under-explain. Just do enough. You'll know when it's enough when your story just flows like the Erie Canal. What? But yeah, those are the three things that I think will make a really good entrant for this competition. I know, oh, Vandal, where's your manga? It's coming, y'all. But these are the things that I'm noticing as I'm looking and just self-reflecting for myself and for others, and I think that it might be really helpful for those going forward. That's all I have for you today, guys. I want to know in the comment section down below, what do you think about some of the things that I've said here? Do they apply? Did I miss something? Did I get something wrong? Let me know in the comment section down below. Also, let me know some other things that you might want me to talk about, because I would love to talk about them. My Discord, if you're interested in having a group of people peer review your work, give you ideas, have a nice place to share that is safe and no one will steal your shit, join our Discord down below. We do body improvement streams where we work on our art, and we do art challenges weekly. It's a very fun place. Check it out. But yeah, guys, that's all I have for you today, guys, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, again, don't forget to hit me with a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Hit that bell for notifications and drop me a comment down below. But yeah, guys, good luck. I'm gonna win though, just to let you know. Peace. Bye.